Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure and, let me say, a privilege to be here with you after such a long night and unexpected 2-year break. The world looks a lot different than it did in November 2 years ago, in ways which none of us would have predicted. Few of us would have predicted such a deadly resurgence of terrorism in the heart of Europe that would have disrupted everyday life in Belgium, France, and other countries, including, of course, the cancellation of the last year's IAPP Congress. And few of us would have predicted a consultative referendum in the UK voting to leave the European Union. None of us would have predicted such a colorful US presidential election. So we may expect a new chapter, internationally speaking, novelties. We will see to which extent they will also be relevant for privacy and data protection. We might have predicted that at long last the EU would reach agreement on the new data protection framework. My message to you today is short and simple. Get ready for the GDPR, but continue to expect the unexpected. It is already 6 months since the GDPR and the Police and Judicial Activities Directive became EU law. There are now 18 months to go before they become fully applicable in May 2018. That is 533 days to be fully compliant with 1999 articles of the regulation. And for the directive on police and judicial activities, which is extremely relevant in terms of prevention, investigation, detection, and prosecution of criminal offenses, member states have a little bit less time to fully transpose into national law. The deadline, as you know, is 6th of May 2018, and this is extremely relevant for business companies as well. So the ball has been dispatched by the legislators, and now it's firmly in the court of independent regulators like us on the incoming panel. So our big challenge is to help controllers to ensure that the abstract letter of the law becomes a concrete reality on the ground. I said 99 articles in 533 days. Make no mistake, the GDPR is here to stay for a long, long time. We need to focus on what is desirable as well as necessary. But the perfect should not be the enemy of the good. My institution, the European Data Protection Supervisor, was never a party to the negotiations on the legislation, but we were, as well as all other independent data protection authorities in the EU, fully engaged in fulfilling our advisory role to the co-legislator. And I think we were all able to leverage our years of experience as advisors to identify ways to improve the text, to focus more on safeguards for individuals and less on bureaucratic procedures. And you might recall that we, as the DPS, we produce an app free to download so that anyone can now more easily compare the old directive and the new regulation. One of our big priorities was to make data protection simple, and I'm pleased to see that we were successful to some extent. 21 provisions for implementing of delegated acts by the European Commission were replaced to allow independent data protection authorities to consider targeted and relevant guidance for controllers and processors. And in the Article 29 Working Party, as said by Isabel, we have a unique opportunity now to prepare the future, to start developing a new gold standard for forward-looking and practical guidelines to be formalized by the EDPB at the right moment. So we need to be ready for day one. The outcome needs to be user-friendly and draw from best practices across the EU and also outside the EU. So the process needs to consult, to be accessible and transparent with stakeholders. As you know, this is also now an obligation under the GDPR Article 70.4. Our independence as DPAs is precious, and its value in this volatile age of big data and mass surveillance cannot be overstated. We have now extensive case law setting out the requirements for functional and visible independence from the executive. Other rulings may be expected. But independence is not isolation. No DPA sits in an ivory tower, nor should they. We need to be conversant, more conversant with technology in order to better assess the impact on personal data processing and fundamental rights. But we also need to be conversant with technology to enable more efficient and inclusive discussions among ourselves as a community of DPAs and with stakeholders in this room and elsewhere. We need to be open. We need to establish a new normal for discussion and debate with controllers on the basis of accountability. Accountability contains the notion that failure to comply causing harms to individuals with irresponsible data processing must be addressed. And the GDPR gives us the ability to apply dissuasive, proportionate sanctions. They must be scalable, of course, just like the obligations throughout the GDPR, in accordance with the riskiness of processing operation. We have discussed, together with colleagues, for example, how to set the dial between core activities and large-scale processing, and how this should influence whether a DPO should be appointed, and how to assist small and medium enterprises who may not have the resources to employ a dedicated DPO. We have been discussing the new rights to data portability and the sectors in which it would be relevant, its relationship with the consumer and competition law. We have also discussed how to roll out data protection impact assessment, the types of risky processing operation which would require one. And we have discussed also the role of certification, a really important innovation in the GDPR for accountable data controllers and for rebuilding trust among individuals in the era of hyperconnectivity. We need to clarify the roles and responsibilities of the various players in this new arena, including, of course, DPAs, the Commission, and accredited certifying bodies. So the systems need to be affordable. More than everything, this system must be credible. And people are entitled to expect an acceptable standard of protection and respect for companies and governments handling their personal data as they would expect from someone handling your private property or for handling machines or using medicine. This is an uncertain period for society and economy. Nassim Taleb, in his 2007 book, Black Swan, writes eloquently how, in predicting the future, we tend to ignore isolated events and negative results. And I think we ignore how people are driven by infinity of instincts. And most of our history is silent and not documented. The European Data Protection Supervisor Ethics Advisory Group is working intensively on a set of principles which one day can help policymakers and even DPAs to navigate existential waters on what it means to be human in an age of virtual and enhanced reality and artificial intelligence, what it means dignity in the 21st century. So new ethical questions are emerging all around us. And everyone is talking about the Netflix series Black Mirror and its kaleidoscope of technological dystopias. And in one episode, your online reputation literally determines the ability of people to participate in society and economy at any level. It may seem ridiculous, but we know the recent history of a UK insurance company wanting to make use of social media data in determining what policies to offer to clients. And we know about the social credit initiative in China. So I think we have to build on the technical and the legal framework which is in place to shape technology and revenue models. It should not be other way around. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will probably come to Brexit discussion during the following panel. But even if one country will leave the European Union, it doesn't change in terms of globalization. There is a movement against international flows and common standards. We see some tendencies around the world about protectionism. And therefore, we must meet these challenges on the basis of that data flows subject to appropriate rules are also relevant in terms of benefits to society and individuals. But respect for different legal cultures requires reciprocity. Adequacy in the EU is not imposition, and data protection is not a trade barrier. I think there are opportunities for all to build bridges and to learn from one another. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a successful day.